What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1996 Volkswagen Beetle Harlequin. Behind me is a 1.6-liter air-cooled flat 4, as well as a 4-speed manual transmission. Now, I am super excited to be making this video because this car is strange. It is one of the most unique cars I have ever reviewed, and I'm excited to share all of that with you. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And huge thank you to Inbound Motorsports for letting me borrow their Harlekin Volkswagen Bug for today's video. More on them towards the end, but if you'd like to browse their inventory or if you'd like to import a vehicle, you could do so in the description below. But let's get back to what makes this car so weird. Why is this such a special vehicle? Well, 3 reasons for that. First of all, the Harlekin, or Harlequin, it's been spelled and used both ways. On the rear, hood, it says Harlekin, but everyone knows these as the Harlequins. So I'm gonna stick with Harlekin because it's on the car, but it's one and the same. This car, this specific car, was a promotional vehicle from Volkswagen. They wanted to advertise that this car could be kept on the road using vintage parts from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So they painted the body panels all different colors to advertise that, and they actually did a whole dealer campaign with it. And so this car from the factory came with this paint scheme and looked this way. The campaign was so successful that they then offered it on the Golf, and everyone knows those. That actually sparked because of this car, so kind of a unique piece of history. The second reason this car is so special is because this is actually a Mexican market Beetle. Down in Mexico, they built this, the original Beetle, up until 2001. And so this car looks like it's from the 60s, but it's actually from the late 90s. And I've never driven a Mexican market Beetle, so I get to do that today. The third reason this car is so special, not only was it a promotional vehicle, one of only about 140 made, not only is it also a Mexican market Beetle, this has been right-hand drive swapped at some point in its life. So it was originally a left-hand drive vehicle. One of the owners, maybe Volkswagen themselves, I don't really know, but someone right-hand drive swapped it. So this is my first time driving a right-hand drive Beetle. With that stuff out of the way, though, let's get back to the drivetrain with that 1.6 liter out at the back. It is still a carbureted engine, and it's really running off of 70s technology here in the 90s. They didn't update it all that much. It's still air-cooled. It's still a flat 4 because that's what made the Beetle so great. They were reliable, they worked well, and they were easy to work on, so they kept it running all the way into the 2000s. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed manual transmission, pretty long throw, somewhat notchy in the gear, but not terribly notchy. It is a fun little drive, and it's enjoyable. And last but not least about the drivetrain, it is of course rear wheel drive. How does it feel to drive a Harlekin right-hand drive swap Mexican market Beetle? It's interesting. It drives like every other Beetle I've ever driven, and I actually fit in this pretty well, which is not always the case depending on the seats of the Beetle, so nice to see that for sure. But the little 4-cylinder is just so plucky. It's like a little sewing machine going on in the background. It doesn't take a whole lot of horsepower to get this thing moving and grooving, and I like that quite a bit. Visibility is great. It's easy to steer, it's easy to shift, and it's easy to love. And that's always been the best part of the Beetle. It was a people's car, so everyone had to be able to drive it, and I'm confident that anyone with half a brain and 2 eyes could operate this motor vehicle. With that out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I get one single gauge. Now, I also have my fuel and odometer in this gauge, but that's it. The steering wheel is a 90s unit, so this is where you can notice that this is not a product of the 70s. This is very, very 90s. However, Mexico still didn't require airbags at this time like the United States did, so no airbag here in the Volkswagen Beetle. On the door, we have the crank for the window and latch to get in and out, and in the center, we have our headlights, warning light, hazard switch, radio, ashtray, and cigarette lighter. Off to the left, we do have a Volkswagen badge. The reason I point this out is because when this was right-hand drive swapped, the Beetle was actually designed to be left or right-hand drive. So you'll notice that there's a little notch for the steering column as well as the exact same shape of the gauge cluster off to the left So when they built these in the factory, they could be left or right-hand drive without having to redesign the dash. That's why this car was so easily swapped. Down on the floor, we do have the shifter for the 4-speed manual, parking brake, and that's it. No cup holders found here in the Harlequin Beetle, so of course it fails the big friggin' bottle test. And the seats are a lot more modern than what you would have found in a 70s or 80s Beetle. So very nice to see that. These do feel like they were pulled out of a Volkswagen Golf, and I'm sure that they probably were. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a backseat review. Oh boy. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get back here. I got one foot in. Oh. All right, I managed it. These seats don't move forward, or if they do, I can't figure out how. So I am 90% in. My left foot is out and would be cut off in traffic, but that's okay. I'm in the back of a Harlekin Beetle. That's cool. It's very cool. I would not want to ride back here, but... well, that's just it. I wouldn't want to ride back here. It's not a great backseat. I've been in the backseat of Beetles before. It's nothing too new. But, you know, as a family vehicle, people did it back in the day. But by any modern standards, this is not a comfy place to be. So there's definitely that. Let's hop up front and talk about the frunk, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, up front of the Volkswagen Beetle. This was known for having a frunk, little button here, and pull it up. You could tell that this is not a Super Beetle because the Super Beetle's spare tire would actually lay more flat because it had more space up front. Because it's pushed up like this, this is the regular sized Beetle. Once we are up here, this is actually the fuel tank underneath here, which I'm not going to pull up, but we get this nice carpet mat, we get some nice tools and things like that. Because another piece of the puzzle, this says Auto Museum Volkswagen on it. This might have been in the Volkswagen's museum. I mean, it has everything. I mean, you could eat off of this. It's so clean and so well kept. It might have done a stint or a run in the auto museum. I don't know, but very, very cool to see the underhood. This car is just such a mystery to me, and that's so cool. That maybe I need to do a deep dive and figure this stuff out, but for now, we're just appreciating its glory here in the sunlight. To put it back down, there you go. Close the hood of the Harlekin Beetle. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and obviously this is the most polarizing part of the Harlekin Beetle. And this is what would later then the Golf Harlequin would copy. So, back in the day, Volkswagen wanted to advertise how reliable this car was. Everyone knows the famous poster of the never will happen coolant leak of a Beetle. I'll show a couple examples here. But not only that, the Beetle rarely changed between 1970 and 1990. Volkswagen wanted to capitalize on that, so they ran this ad campaign saying, hey, you can use the fenders from an 80, a hood from a 1970, a windshield from the 60s. Actually, I think that is one of the different parts of the windshield, but nevertheless, you can use all these body panels to keep your vehicle on the road. You have so many options, and cheap ones at that. And so they painted a couple of these Beetles to look like they were made out of a bunch of different parts. Now, they weren't. They just ran off the assembly line and were painted in a certain way. But in order to advertise that ability, that's what they chose to do. And so that's why this car looks all mismatched, because this was a promotional vehicle to go to dealerships. And once they were done with dealerships, they were kind of free game. And so this particular one was then sold off into a private collection after its dealership run and has changed hands a couple times and now can actually be yours if you want to drive it. It's fully registerable and insurable. And so those are my final thoughts. That's getting into my final thoughts. This car is so special and so unique, and this started something that has become so iconic in the Volkswagen brand. People now wrap their Tiguans and Golfs and all of these vehicles, they try to mimic this really cool look. I mean, it's so outlandish and out there. I don't know of any other car company that's ever purposefully made their vehicle look mismatched, but here we are, and that's what Volkswagen did. It's also fun to be driving right-hand drive. No shock there. The Beetle drives the same left-hand drive or right-hand drive, doesn't really matter. And so this has been a lovely, lovely look at a very rare car. And I was so thankful that Inbound Motorsports made this video happen. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Inbound Motorsports, both Rami and Ferris, for helping me out. They are absolutely wonderful. If you are looking to import a vehicle here in North Jersey or anywhere in the country, I know people from California that have purchased from Inbound Motorsports. Definitely go check them out. Their information is down in the description below. They have an absolute candy store wealth of vehicles in their inventory. Please contact them. I don't think you'll regret it. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.